We talked about this before, and it's just something that I really think just is nauseating to me.
Ooh, this should be
when
good.
people start comparing stuff to slavery. Okay, and we start comparing people's actions today to Frederick Douglass and Martin Luther King Jr. and the Middle Passage and 400 years of slavery and Harriet Tubman. That really chaps me, okay? So yesterday, Kamala Harris is comparing what the Democrats did here in Texas at the State House. What happened was we're supposed to vote on some new voter laws, which we will talk about here in a second. And instead of voting, instead of having the debate, instead of probably losing the debate, they picked up their toys, got on a private plane, and flew to D.C. so that there couldn't be a quorum to vote on the bill. And Kamala Harris described them and described this act tantamount to Frederick Douglass and Selma.
That's not a good comparison.
That's not a good comparison at all.
In my mind, I think about Frederick Douglass, who I've read all of his autobiographies.
Yes.
Because they're fascinating.
And he is fascinating.
And he's a fascinating individual.
Very complex, very complex.
Yes, yes. I would encourage everybody to read his works. I imagine Frederick Douglass, when he was a slave.
Yes.
When he was forced to toil the land for others and not reap the benefits.
Yeah.
I'm sure that if he were around today, he wouldn't compare his situation to a group of 51 people who decided to get on a private plane to fly away from doing their job. Conveniently. Not exactly the same thing.
No.
And we're not only talking about voting rights. It's not the only legislation we're talking about.
Oh, here we go.
We're talking about other things too. We're talking about relief for people for property taxes.
Yeah, retirement, pension fund stuff.
I pay a lot in property taxes.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I can afford to pay a lot in property taxes.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't.
Yeah.
We're talking about funding for adoption agencies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Might be interesting to some people to realize when you're talking about a special session, you're not only just talking about one issue.
One thing.
There's many votes that happen over the course of this.
But Wrendon,
so these freedom patriot Frederick Douglass people who got on a plane and left and are not exercising really the voters' will, this is a democracy, right?
Yes.
If you don't like the laws that are passed, vote these people out.
Vote with, and you can. What our Constitution was created for you to vote with your feet.
Yeah.
You don't like it, you can go somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's why we have individual states' rights.
Yeah.
You go live in a state that's more palatable to how you want to lead. That's fine.
You've got many choices.
You have choices.
This is like a Subway.
Yeah, right?
Right?
Eat fresh.
Nobody comes in and says, hey, man, you have to get the meatball sub.
Yeah, you have to get
That's all we serve. I've never been to a Subway where all they serve is meatball sub.
No.
There's always that turkey that's been sitting there for 5 weeks.
5 weeks. 10 weeks. 5 weeks.
5 weeks, 10 weeks. By the way, you know, I refuse to eat of
Subway.
Mostly yes, but in particular at Subway, the breakfast sandwiches.
Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about this. I haven't eaten Subway since I was in the Army, and I didn't have a choice.
This has been a while. It's probably been 12 or 13 years because I remember Waddell and I went into a Subway and we're getting a breakfast sandwich. And when they took that spongy egg out of the water with the gloves and shook off the water on it, and then put it on a little paper thing and put it in the microwave.
Damn good, dog.
That was the last time I ate a Subway breakfast sandwich.
It's gonna be a no for me.
It's gonna be a no for me, dog. It's gonna be a no for me. But back to our friends, the freedom fighting
Patriots.
51.
Yeah. So
like that alliteration.
it's pretty good.
Thank you.
So the other thing that bothers me is this: the voting laws that we're trying to pass in Texas. Here's the crux of it.
You're about to say something rational. I hate it when you do this.
We're going to require an ID. we're going to restrict the times and when you can vote so we could know who comes and votes and we can monitor it properly. And unless you are disabled in some capacity, you actually have to get out of your vehicle, walk into the building, and go vote. And we're restricting mail-in ballots to those people that are retired and over the age of 65, and also other people that don't have the physical means to get up and vote.
But Wesley, we've had mail-in ballots ever since the beginning of this country.
Wow.
When the USPS was riding on ponies. No, we haven't.
Wrendon, so when I hear that this is somehow restrictive to people of color, let me be blunt. It's white liberals lying to you. Period.
Yeah.
It's white liberals lying to you. Because if you are a person and you want to figure out how to vote, you have 2 weeks to figure out how to vote, because in our state we have early voting. Unlike Delaware, where Joe Biden was actually the senator for that state, they don't have early voting.
Sure.
We have 2 weeks of early voting. And if you can't figure out how to early vote between these times of the day in person, there's something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with the system. And by the way, I have yet to talk to somebody that had a problem voting, period, in the last 10 years in Texas. Point them out to me. I'd love to meet them.
I have a question for you. Is it important to have times when people can vote?
Wrendon,
It's just a question. Don't shoot the messenger.
Wrendon, this is beyond, this is crazy. So I'm going to give you an example. If your favorite restaurant is what? What's your favorite restaurant?
My favorite restaurant? Gosh, I like Good Company Seafood.
Good Company Seafood.
Yeah.
I'm a Carrabba's on Kirby kind of guy.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
If you know that Carrabba's or Good Company Seafood closes at 9, then you figure out a way to get your food before 9 o'clock.
Well, but see, there's a difference there.
What?
If I go into Good Company Seafood and I know it closes at 9, and I get there at 9:05, and they don't let me in, it's because they're racist. It's the only logical. That's the only logical answer to that. Next thing you know, they're gonna be they're gonna walk up to me with a fried chicken and watermelon at a.
I'm sure he wanted the chicken because he's black.
Give me a break, man.
Stop this.
Give me a break.
Stop this.
Give me a break.
And black people have got to stop falling for this. And you know what's really funny, Wrendon? You know what's really funny? When I talk to black people, they actually don't even believe this. They're like, yeah, I voted. I've never had an issue voting. Yeah, I have ID. If you talk to people that want to go vote, this is not a problem.
Well, we're making something a race issue. We are pulling a race issue out of thin air.
Yeah.
Because there's one piece of all of this legislation that I think is really important to highlight, because there are people who are disabled who have a harder time voting. And we need to address that very specifically. We are addressing that very specifically.
We always have been.
But we are literally pulling race bait out of thin air and making it seem like, because guess what? This is what's easy to do when we separate pieces of humanity, so we make it seem like us versus them. This is how we bifurcate people and tear people apart. Because somehow, because you're black, it has to be harder for you in some way. Certain things, like voting, look, if there's a time in which you can vote, it doesn't make it harder or less harder for you to go to a polling location because you're black or white. That's a ridiculous thing to think.
It's ridiculous.
Like that concept is
actually
insulting
insulting and racist to insinuate that black people and people of color can't do that.
Or mail-in voting, or voting in your car. Explain to me how it would be easier for a black person to drive up in a car and vote than it would be for a white person to drive up in a car and vote.
So
explain it to me. Or explain to me why,
so
why the mail system in a black community is so much better than the mail system in a white community, so mail-in ballots somehow are going to affect black people in a different way than it's going to affect white people. And I go back to even the times of voting and even the way we think about early voting more broadly. There's a reason why we have an election day. We have an election day because there are a lot of things that can happen that lead up to election day that might or might not change the person who you are going to be voting for. There's a reason why there is a campaign season. It's a time to get comfortable with and understand candidates. And the idea, you talk about people lying to the American people, people are lying to you when they tell you that quote unquote Republicans want to limit any access to democracy or any access to voting, because that's a lie.
That's not true.
Because you can ask me very directly, yes, I want people to vote, I want their votes to be counted, and I want there to be fair elections.
Everybody's.
That's what I want.
Period.
And you know what? Sometimes you lose in those fair elections. And if you lose in those fair elections, you shouldn't get on a private plane and fly away so that you can't vote on behalf of the people that you represent.
Whoa. Whew. Well, I thought I was fired up, man.
I just had an espresso, man.
And Wrendon, not only that, the Freedom 51, the Freedom Fighting 51. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. They get on a plane. So I just came from Nashville.
Yeah.
Do you know what I had to do? I had to wear a mask on the flight. Do you know why? Someone who's had COVID and has been vaccinated, do you know why I have to wear a mask?
Because you're black.
It was good. Get this guy another espresso. Do you know why? It's because of and unfortunately this has seriously become a political thing. But it's because of Democrats, basically that are forcing us to still wear masks even when we've been vaccinated, and that's fine. That's fine. If we want to protect other people, look on a flight, I will do it. If I want to go from A to B, I'll put my mask on. That's fine. That's fine. They're on a private plane with no mask on.
Ooh.
Taking a picture smiling as if they're doing the right thing. Wrendon, this is like an armed robber, okay, going into a convenience store, sticking up the cashier and smiling in the camera.
So
you're not doing a good thing. And you shouldn't be proud of this. This is not good.
And this is another thing that bothered me about this whole scenario, right? Because you're right. It was an Instagram, Facebook.
It was cavalier.
Curated.
It was a stunt.
Curated moment, right?
Yes.
Because let me tell you something. I've seen a lot of photos from Edmund Pettus Bridge.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen anybody smiling.
Whoa, wait, nobody smiling on that bridge.
On any of those photos.
Wow.
That was not a stunt. That was exercising liberty.
Yeah. This is not exercising liberty.
This is a stunt.
Don't kid yourself.
This is a stunt.
Don't kid yourself.
This is a stunt.
Wrendon, maybe it's the military stuff in us. I don't know. But if a law comes out that says you can only vote from this time to this time, you have to have an ID, you have 2 weeks to do it. Do you know what I say? Do I want to vote? Okay.
Let's make it happen.
Let's go vote. If that's the minimum that I have to do to go make sure that my vote counts, why are we having this conversation?